Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to call this Central School Board meeting to order, September 23rd, 2024, with all board members present. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes from board members?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that. Motion made by Lurkey, second by Ishins. Any other conversations? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Agenda is approved. Move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Schachner, is there anything you want to highlight in there?
Yes, this past week, we did receive a letter of retirement effective January 17th, 2025 for Deb Stacken. She is a longtime paraprofessional with our district. She has been here 31 years and she is excited and just has lots of plans for retirement, and I'm really happy. And on behalf of the district, just want to thank Deb for her years of service and wish her the best in retirement. And she's trying to provide us some flexibility by doing this now for the semester break is basically what's it. So wish Deb the best.
It's a lot of lives she's affected in a positive way. So congratulations to her. Any other conversations or questions related to the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Lurkey, second by Crayles. Any other conversations? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to A6, acceptance of gifts. We have $1,500 from Elroy Lotzik for cross country. There's $1,500 from the Cologne Fire Relief Association for Radar Room needs, supplies, and field trips, and $465 from Minnesota Valley Electric Trust for kindergarten field trips. Thank you to everybody for their generous gifts. Any questions from board members?
Move to approve. Second.
All right. Motion made by Crayles, second by Smith. Any other conversations? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Gifts approved. We'll move on to public forum. Oh, I see a lot of head shaking. No. Okay. Then we'll move on to the monthly items. Student council. Just stand up, say your name. And
I'm Ben Schiffers, I'm on student council.
I'm Jameson Ackerman, I'm also on student council.
We've been working on a lot of stuff, getting ready for homecoming. I did more of the parade organization, getting fire trucks from local fire departments. And we also organized a powder puff where they had donated canned food or $3 for a local food shelf. So that's all I did, at least.
Something that we've been working on as a student council is dress up days for homecoming. We're gonna run some trivia and later times before homecoming, and the blood drive on October 9th.
all right. Thanks, guys. Homecoming week is next week, correct? Coronation on Monday, and then okay. All right. Thanks, guys. You are more than welcome to stay, but you are also welcome to leave if you want. Don't feel like you need to stick around. Usually everybody runs out here super fast. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Student representative report.
So
Did
we
you
will
wanna-
have a new student rep that will begin next month. It'll be Kate. You work for here. So she's a junior. She'll be joining us next month. And then next month, we'll also be on with Jackson for his service last year. So we'll have a little passing of the baton between those two next month. I just, for the board's FYI, I did order him a plaque, commemorating the service. He'll be eligible for that.
There's an MSA.
MSBA scholarship that he'll be eligible for. So that's it. So we'll just meet Caitlin next month.
How does that get picked?
Mr. Larson puts it out during his class meeting, and she was doing one. We always pick a junior a junior, so that way when they're eligible for the MSB scholarship, that could kind of, and it just makes sense. So that's who's put out to the entire grade before she gets school. Yeah.
Excellent. Move on to the superintendent report.
So a couple things, on Friday, myself, Mr. Larson, Ms. Thor, and Ms. Brown went to a law conference down in Minneapolis, put on by one of our law firms. That was really good learning. Very thankful for that. We did some updates on, learned about some updates on Title IX. I will be working with policy committee to those. If you haven't been in the auxiliary gym, just a reminder for everyone, when we were having our roof finished, there was an accident and water pooled on our gym floor, ruining the gym floor. And so I just want to be thankful to the Jackson and Associates, which is the roofing company. They stepped up and they covered the entire cost, which to be honest with you, it's a 6-figure total. And we had a complete resand, complete repair, complete paint job, and now we'll be on there and starting next week. And I know some of our volleyball folks will be thankful to have just the additional seating that gym provides. But that is all wrapped up. Finally, Mr. Krails joined myself and some representatives from NESIS today. We are starting our walkthroughs for final punch lists for both of the buildings. We got through, and we were at it for about 4 hours today, and we did not finish this building on Thursday. We'll be at the elementary school and finishing up here. So those final punch lists will get done. We can put something more prepared. So that's exciting. But all in all, we'll start to the year, and yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to board reports. Does anybody have?
Community Ed met last Monday night, so I guess big topic there is the craft fair coming up. So then this year, for a change, there will be nothing at the elementary school. It'll all be at the gyms here, so it'll be nice. Maybe you know a little bit more on that flooring with trying to cover it.
So we have some things for the cart tables and everything, so we don't have to trip.
Big discussion of how that's gonna work with, maybe the floor is all damaged right away, so yeah, it'll be nice. They were not full as of last Monday for spaces. So there's some people that are obviously want to stay where they were and whatever, don't get cranny if they were in elementary school, they want to be back there and it's not an option anymore. So it'll be nice to keep it all centralized for food and everything. So that was a big discussion, I guess.
I think the town, the mobility band will only have to make one trip.
Yeah.
I think they had a coordinate between all those things. Just. Could be more.
On community development, since our last meeting, just want to give a shout out to the National Honor Society and football teams for their annual helping out with the Stiftungsfest. NHS usually shows up at 6 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday, and then football comes to follow later that morning just to clean up from the following night, and then they come on Monday morning just to pack up. And it's always they always provide plenty of help, and it's much appreciated. So shout out to those two organizations.
Southwest Metro is still kind of working through the transition of new superintendent. So Jeff is, I think, kind of taking, I think I said before, he's, very enthusiastic about being there, and he's kind of just taking the opportunity to just say, let's kind of like start fresh everywhere. So he's kind of set up committees similar to what we're doing here. So we've all been divided into committees. We'll be meeting virtually so that we're not all having to drive so much, but just taking a look at everything. Like, let's just start from the beginning, look at all the policies, look at all the stuff. So we'll probably see some more changes coming from there in the future here, just kind of as we take a new step with him on board. And I think it's gonna be really good.
From the superintendent contract committee, I'll just share that one that Tim notified Crayles, myself, and Erickson about looking at another contract for the 25 through 28. Is that right? Yeah. So we just had our first meeting today, just kind of look at that and start the conversation. So.
Yeah, and the finance committee, the report is attached to this meeting, and it's still early in the school year. So not much really to report from enrollment or just the financials in and of themselves, but just want to remind everybody that the finance team or the office ladies are busy with the audit requests and trying to get the support to our third-party audit firm.
So can I put two things on there? So in the attachment that you see under board reports, that is last year. So remember, we report our enrollment 1 month later, and then I kind of budget at the end of the year because obviously it's not going to change. So it's blank for September because we are waiting for our October 1 counts to come in. Our budget was budgeted on 9/15 plus our ECSC total. So we'll see where we're coming. We're a little optimistic on some of our enrollment right now, but I know when we're optimistic, we did all staff members get to transfer out list. So we have had some changes in the last month. So that's why they wait until October 1. That's usually the dust settles for transition that begins. So. Thank you.
Anything else from committees or report? All right, we'll move to discussion items. Ms. Erickson.
Discussion items D1, Andrea Colstick, Curriculum and Staff Development Update.
Can you look into that, Mr. Larson? Thank you. And is there a possibility to make it larger or?
Can you see your older heads?
Yeah. Well, we're just gonna. All right, go on.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here to talk curriculum and professional development updates for this school year. And really the big news is around math, and that's because math is our next content area in the curriculum review cycle. And really the exciting thing and interesting thing that we are really focusing efforts on training and learning this year, and then purchasing our resources next school year. And that really comes from that recommendation from MDE and also the Minnesota Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And if you look at the timing wise, it honestly makes really good sense because these 2022 standards are still in rulemaking, and then they don't actually get implemented until the 27-28 school year. So we have some time to learn, to do training, and then make a really smart decision on curriculum next year. And some of that training actually started over the summer. Teachers were trained in the data science progression, that the Anchor Standard 1 in math, and that really is statistics, investigating data, analyzing data, communicating data, and that's a big one for our students. So we had some training around that. We had some teachers attend week-long cognitively guided instruction training. And this is about learning to listen to our students and where they're at, giving them tools to really build their number sets and problem solving. And when I think about, or when I talked to people who attended this training, they said this was actually something we did around 12 years ago and had a lot of success afterwards with it. Now we have the opportunity to have new teachers attend as well. Math rigor and depth of knowledge was another training that was offered this summer. And I was able to attend that one to get some more tools to bring back to our school. And then the biggest one was building thinking classrooms. And there are people a buzz about building thinking classrooms around the state. And we were fortunate to have teachers who went to the math conference in Duluth last spring and come back hearing about building thinking classrooms, really get excited about it, and then go ahead and attend training over the summer. And these are our middle school and high school teachers. And I was able to go into classrooms, and we've all had conversations with these teachers, and they are excited. And really building thinking classrooms is a framework for engaging students you can see they are standing up. It's really strategic. They're put in random groups of 3, standing up next to whiteboards, and then they have a model where one person explains, the other person writes, and they kind of rotate through so that they are all having to be engaged in the learning. And there's sometimes when the teacher gives explicit teaching, and then they practice, and then they go back and take notes, and you can read the quotes. Jody Curson wrote, "My students are super engaged in work time. It's so fun to see all the math that happens during the hour." And this next slide is from 7th grade, and I was in there. I took this picture of this boy with his arms up, and it was challenging content. And he said, "I got it," and it was just great. And she wrote, "I can't believe all the math talk happening in my classroom. Students are working together, struggling through difficult concepts as a team. I'm very proud of them. I would like to thank Central's administration and school board for supporting us in this endeavor. I would not have known about or bought into the Building Thinking Classroom if the math department had not attended the MCTM conference last spring." Her classroom is exactly what a thinking classroom should look like, and she's so grateful for the support and encouragement. And then the last slide on this is from a 10th grade class, from Ms. Augustus's classroom. And she wrote, "Thinking Classrooms has changed the whole atmosphere for classes. Students are no longer sitting and mimicking what I write on the board. They are standing up in groups of 3. They're working together. And the amount of math talk that happens in Thinking Classrooms is electrifying." And one of the things we know is that students learn the best when they're able to explain their thinking. That's when the best learning happens. And that's what they're doing every day when they do this work. And I was able to ask the kids, I had to ask the kids too what they thought. And I didn't ask every student, but every 7th grader I asked said they like doing it this way. All but one 10th grader I asked said, yeah, they like doing it this way. And one 10th grade boy said, he actually used this language, he has a better opportunity to learn the material this way. And one other student said, they enjoy working with partners and it helps because I need to explain my thinking and hear others thinking. So it's been a great way to start the year when they did this training and now they're doing this work. It's just been a really good start, and all of this training will help us as we continue to dive into the standards and the resources. So, and then a few more additional focus areas that I just wanted to share out. For early childhood and preschool, they're full swing into doing the early childhood letters. That was a mandate from the state. They are actually going to get a chance to get some curriculum and assessment that goes for their early childhood. And then in elementary, we've got letters training going for the next group of teachers who didn't have the chance. So by the end of next year, everybody in elementary will be trained. We have a new math intervention for special education, which I don't know if has ever happened since I've been here. We have generalists who are going to be doing some visual arts training and that's part of the comprehensive arts planning partnership work. And then in the secondary level, we have some letters training as well. Mr. Larson's going through the admin letters training. We have new math intervention materials for the special education at the secondary level. And then we have been really planning out how to be really intentional about PLC and professional development and getting those scope and sequences that I've shared in the unit pacing guides that will be able to be put out there for the family so they can see what kids are learning. And then, as we go one more, the last thing is we are continuing our partnership with Incubate to Innovate and inviting families in to get a closer look at that this year. Any questions for me?
I think it's always fun having you two. You have just such an energy. It's just infectious. Thank you for all your hard work.
Rich, can you keep scrolling and still come up? You get warm here.
Oh, that's done with you.
Chris Gibbs is the founder and owner of Global Learning, and you all probably recognize him throughout the building project. He's an architect by day and a educational entrepreneur at night. Maybe that's what
Not even an architect by day anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And so the three of us are gonna talk to you, just about some learning work that's gonna be happening, with some of our staff and families throughout the next year. You know, the title of our presentation is From Renovation to Innovation. I think I've talked to you multiple times about, I want people talking about what's happening inside our classrooms, not about the building project. And it is about our living year. And I'm excited about what we're going to be doing next. So, as you know, at the onset, or excuse me, right post pandemic, and some of you were on the strategic planning committee. We had a group of 30 community members, teachers, administrators, and facilitators develop a strategic plan that had four key directions. Sorry, that was me telling Rich to move the slide here. Attract and develop quality staff, excel in facilities and resource management, innovate towards the destination district, and expand opportunities for improvement and achievement. You can go to the next slide, please. Then we teased out a little bit about what those things meant in the gray area here. And we've been working in various pockets of this strategic plan for 4 years. And this plan does end in 2025, or maybe needs a revision in 2025, because some of the work still is going to be continuing. And we are basically going to be living in the last two columns here, the destination district column and the improved achievement column. And we want to talk about what that central experience could look like and what steps we're going to take here moving forward to tease out what the central experience could look like for families. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about our potential high school in the future. So
Thanks. It's great to be here. And one of the beautiful parts of my role is that I get to capture the passion of people like Andrea and Tim, and frankly, the minutia that goes into running the school district and making sure that students learn and that curriculum standards are met. Not very often do educators get an opportunity to kind of take a deep breath and think about what the future might look like. And so one of the things, if you could scroll, one of the things we're going to do over the next year is to really look at what the high schools should look like here in Central Schools. And so over the next number of months, starting in October, we have our first community-based group that will include students, staff members, community members, to really sit down and think about business owners, to really sit down and think about what do we really need out of our high school graduates when they come out of the doors of this great facility with the great teachers and great staff and all the administration and all the work that goes into producing graduates. What does that really look like? And most importantly, what does that experience look like to better affect more positive learning for every student, each and every student? And we know that the district is really successful. We also know that the district could be more successful. And we want to do everything we can to take an opportunity to think about what we want that experience to look like and how we can best meet the needs of everybody in that user group, whether it's a younger student or a business owner or a parent or a board member or a teacher. How can we change and evaluate that experience? So we're going to go through a series of workshops with that community group, probably 3 to 4, starting in October through next March. And then after that process, we're all, from an administrative perspective, going to take a big deep breath and absorb all that information. We really can't think about what's beyond that yet because we don't know what we're going to hear. It's not like we have a prescribed thing and we say, hey, we're just going to walk these people through and say, this is what we're going to do. No, this is really a blank slate, and we're really going to dive into making sure that we're evaluating every piece of the system and looking at it as best we can, and then spending next summer and early fall of 25 to really look at how we would coalesce those ideas and start to brainstorm some information about what that might look like and how we might plan around that. The implementation long-term of what that looks like is a little up in the air because once again, we don't know the scope of that. We don't know the breadth that that might take. But the idea is that we're going to really dive into those experiences for students and staff and make sure that we look at that and create the best experience we can for each and every person in the district.
So continuing on to, middle school, keep going. That is the high school part. And, for middle school, we have engaged with the 3 6th grade teachers. Mr. Olson and I met with them last week. And basically, we are going to take this year for them to fully develop. And again, I can't give you details because the details don't exist right now, because again, like Chris said, it's a blank slate, but an immersive experience that is going to be for 6th graders. And the 6th grade teams can make it some time to develop that. They're going to work with NKP to innovate, to develop what that immersive, hands-on experience, could look like. If you go to the next slide, go 2 slides. And what our hope is that whatever this immersive experience becomes, that the following year, or excuse me, 25, 26, we would roll that out. We would spend a year developing that, roll that out in 25, 26 for 6th grade. Then they would have like an engineering design process, an iteration where they would refine that. And at the same time, 7th grade would be developing. And then we would continue that process for 8th grade. So then the hope is at the end of 3 years, at the end of 4 years, we would have something fully hatched, fully baked for what the central experience is for middle school. And we're not talking like throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. We're talking about in here it says 6 to 9 weeks. It could be that raise the eyebrows of the teachers when I pitched it to them. It could be 4 weeks. It's an experience. It's something. It's doing something differently than what we're doing right now currently. Looking at multidisciplinary approach to secondary education, like a full middle school type experience with those teachers.
Okay, so the next slide is multi-curricular pilot projects, and the main thing about this, the word to hold on to is the application. We have kids who learn all these things. We want to have them be able to apply it and to have them apply it in a way that connects their learning. And so integrating multiple subjects and including, that view of this is critical thinking at its finest. We in the elementary, this happens just more naturally. The teachers teach multiple content areas, they can connect things. We have our STEAM teacher who's been doing projects starting last year already with, there's so many examples. CKLA with some of the units that STEAM teacher was able to create. I think in 1st grade, there was a fairy tale unit, and then they were making chariots for pumpkins in the STEAM lab. And when kids do that, when they see it in this classroom and connect it to here, it just sticks so much more. And that was the whole concept with some of the I2I training that we've done. So when you look at the secondary, it's definitely more departmentalized. So it just takes more intentionality. It can be done, but we need to be more intentional about it. And then the next slide, we've had lots of conversations about this because we know how important it is to make sure that we're looking at data, to make sure that we are still assessing the standards, to make sure that we can make sure that our student performance is going to be impacted from our work here. And so, we will be setting goals, we will be using assessments, we will be taking feedback, and again, applying the learning from I2I, which every single staff member has had. And that's honestly, that's the beautiful thing that we've been able to do the last few years.
So I know that was a lot. I think it's ambitious. But I think it's needed. And maybe you have a lot of questions. I don't have a lot of answers right now because we have to do the work. And I think that's a key thing. Like honestly, when I was meeting with some of the teams of teachers, they were like, well, what do you have in mind? And when I said back, like, nothing, I really do not have, like, the end. I mean, I think the end is in view, meaning we want increased student achievement. We want a hands-on immersive experience. We want teachers and students collaborating together, thinking critically, using our technology and whatever resources we have. But that's very broad. That doesn't get down to the nitty-gritty of what is actually going to be done in the classroom or with the team. So that's the work that the teachers have. And what I know, and I said this to them, is when they develop it, they become the champion of it. If it's my idea or Chris's idea or Rich's idea or Andrew's idea, it's something that's done to them, which is not the outcome that we're looking for. So
The only thing
yeah,
that I would add is it's meant to stretch the boundaries, right? The process of giving professionals the opportunity to think broadly is to make things better. It's not, the world of education has an ability almost in its DNA to slide back to what we were and what we have been. And that's great. It's worked for a long, long time. There's lots of changes in our world that provide us an opportunity to say, okay, what could we do? What should we do? And how, without some of those barriers that all those things that come with running the school system, we want to give those staff members an opportunity to really engage in this and really dive in and say, if we could, how would we? And to kind of take away those barriers and to loosen up those strings. And it's not something that you walk into a teacher who's been teaching for 10 years and say, okay, you have an hour, let's figure this out. This is something that we have to give them lots of time. And we may have, and part of my role is to push. And it's not to push to say you're not doing a good job. It's to push because we don't get this opportunity very often. And so the opportunity is there, and it's really exciting. I think that we hope that the staff engage in such a level that it creates a level of momentum within the district that it just continues. And that's the hope. And obviously these 2 or 3 initiatives that we've talked about are starting spots, but the hope is that we're doing it strategically enough that the whole community rallies around and creates a much better experience for both staff and students throughout the whole district.
I have a question for you. So with the middle school, are we doing anything with high school, like a group there or elementary?
So right now we are so the high school, the phase 1 and phase 2 of high school, and I'll put a little bit more meat on the bone. We have identified some 5th grade students, some 11th grade students, some teachers, some parents, and some community members that we are going to invite together. It's not going to be among a group, a small group, but basically talking about what's working well in high school and what could be. Because why 5th graders? Because they have no schema or background of what high school should look like. And our juniors have been around long enough that they know the drill. They know, I bet they can pick apart what's wrong a little bit, juniors. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the other thing, once again, not having a prescribed notion, in the perfect world, whatever comes out of that high school piece would be implemented in a few years when those 6th graders in the 25-26 school year get that first level immersion. When they're 9th graders, there's a varying experience for them to have an option. And it may or may not be the whole high school experience. It may be a portion of students or a piece of the students. But we know that we can't just come up with an idea and then say, all right, we came up with an idea, in 9 months implement it. Because there's we anticipate a significant amount of work to fill in that gap to make sure that curriculum standards are met and all the boxes are checked that these two need to check. And so the idea is that we would build towards that point where at that 28, 29 school year, that would be the opportunity to have a varying high school experience more developed and implementable.
So then, to your point about middle school, that's where immersive experience is being developed this year, those teachers. And I mean, this was maybe a little bit of a throwaway line that Andrea said. It is part, and this is coming from an elementary school teacher, an interdisciplinary way of thinking is natural for an elementary school teacher because they have those kids all day. They teach all 4 subjects, 8 subjects, sorry. And it's just a natural way to make those connections because the secondary is departmentalized. It just needs to be a and I think that is our starting point. Does that answer? We'll see.
It's a lot to undertake. It's, you know, giving permission to staff to dream and be creative and really
Push
stretch
them to
it.
dream.
Yeah. How are we weaving in social emotional? Like, will some of those, like tapping into some of those resources and building
All,
a hands-on experience
we talk
with all
about,
senses, basically?
sorry, when we talk about Chris facilitating and pushing people, all aspects of learning are going to be.
And there's going to be a certain point when a concept comes out of this, of what that experience should look like. There's going to have to be an awful lot of time and energy that's making that real. And a lot of those social emotional check marks and a lot of those personalization and all those things will have to be filled in the details in regards to how's the best way. And the reality of it is, it's probably different for students, and we have to think about staff as well. And so there's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, this is as you all know, this is a really complicated system, and biting off pieces that are manageable, even the smallest pieces are going to take some effort and some resources to make them implementable. And it may not be right the first time, right? There's a little bit of risk here, right? Because you can always look back and say it's working. It may not be working as great as it could, but it's working. And there may be some things that really challenge some of that. At least from a conversation perspective, we would hope that there would be some challenges to some of the things that we all know as school. And if that were to continue on, you can imagine the complications and the work that'll have to go into sorting that out. But it's, as I said before, it's a great opportunity, and we're hoping the community and the staff are as energetic as we are about the possibilities of what could become.
It's a fun and unique topic as well. And sometimes tripping up is one of the biggest things that most things are learned. So.
This isn't being done anywhere else. This is like our own.
I was gonna ask, has any other schools been trying to do this?
They've been trying to do it for 30 years.
Wow.
I don't think anybody has gotten to this level of planning, for the lack of a better word, of a plan that I think with a little thought and a little foresight, almost anybody can look at this and say, okay, we're setting the groundwork for what our community, our collective community, wants out of our school system. And here are some implementable ways to evolve it. And we, as I said before, it's not to say that every 9th through 12th grade student at the end of the day in 10 years is going to go through whatever's created. That's not, but at least we're going to have the opportunity to explore how to make that better. And we may determine that there's multiple ways for that high school experience to work, which adds complications to Andrea's and Tim's job, but it makes it even all the more important because you're hearing it from your community and your students.
You know, I will say there are articles you can find that support the need for it. There, you know, that I feel like I come across once in a while, the need for changing things. I feel like when you went to ISTE, there were definitely model classrooms that were doing innovative things. I mean, it's just, I don't know that there's a perfect model yet.
I would add to that, I would say, I think the key word you just said is classrooms doing it, not necessarily systems. Still a nice solution. So we'll see.
Gotta put a patent on it now.
I was wondering when you get published, Brenda.
My spare time is at soccer.
Very excited. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. There we go.
D2, Joe Play, Central Activities Update.
Thanks for stalling for me. Yeah, I'll wait. Good timing, perfect.
Just had a couple things to kind of update you guys on in the athletics realm. So for those of you that kind of remember the presentation from last year, we were going through the official end of the Minnesota River Conference, and we were going through the placement process with the State High School League. We were applying to conferences, and we didn't really know what was going to happen and where we were going to land. Last December, we were officially placed into the Wright County Conference for the start of this school year. So we are off and running in the Wright County era. For those of you that don't really know what the Wright County Conference is, it offers 27 total sports and activities. It includes things like academic challenge, or what we call our Knowledge Bowl, all the way to swimming and diving, tennis, volleyball. Football is its own entity, so that's really not in this activity, but Central will have teams competing in 17 of those 27 activities. So the ones that we don't are swim, dive, boys and girls tennis, boys and girls lacrosse, boys hockey, our skiing, and dance. So we were placed into the Wright County West, which makes 9 teams. I listed them on the doc. But they are Annandale, Dassel, Cokato, Glencoe, Silver Lake, Howard Lake, Woodwood, Instead, Litchfield, New London, Spicer, Rockford, Watertown, Mayor, and us. The other side of the conference is bigger schools. It's not necessarily an East and a West geographical. The West is 2A schools. The East has a few 3A schools, and then Holy Family and Southwest Christian are the private parochial schools in there. So Delano, Holy Family, Hutchinson, Jordan, Mount Westonka, Southwest Christian make up the East. Our fall schedule is a little rocky this year. We did not get into the rotation for this year. So my job last year was to just kind of piece apart where everybody had buys. So if you're wondering kind of why the volleyball schedule this year happens to be a lot of Mondays and Tuesday games, that's not how the conference schedules them out. We just got in December, didn't want to have to go back. So for soccer, volleyball, we just kind of pieced our way through there. We do have new banners that came in last week, so we have the old ones taken down, and the new ones will be going up as we go through. We are the smallest enrollment in the conference, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily haven't been able to compete in there. One of the benefits of going to the Wright County Conference is we're getting a lot more lower level games. So for example, junior high volleyball, they have all schools right now have 2 7th grade teams and 2 8th grade teams. So they've been playing an A level and a B level, where in the past we've struggled where some have had one combined 7th and 8th grade team. We've had to decide which one of our groups is going to go play where. Almost all of them have had 9th grade levels. And actually in the volleyball scene, we've actually been able to add a 4th level this year, which we hadn't had the option of. So right now with certain schools, we're playing a varsity, a junior varsity, a B squad, and a C squad level. So that's been a really, really good thing for our groups. With more games, more officials sometimes becomes an issue. Really the tough one that we've had this year has been soccer, but we've been able to go through. The scheduling for it can change depending on the sport. Not every activity is divided into an East and a West. For example, girls soccer, there's 10 teams total, so we're all in one big group. So we play everybody. We play the other side. We play the Delanos, the Mounds, the big schools. Wrestling is 2 sides of 6. Wrestling has a lot of co-ops to it. So like Annandale and Maple Lake are combined. Dassel, Cokato, and Litchfield are combined. Scott West is Jordan and Belle Plaine, they're combined. Hutch, Buffalo Lake, Hector are combined. So for our central wrestling team to compete against a lot of those co-ops will be a true test for them. The junior high schedules tend to be based off of travel considerations. They're more in pods than they are east and west. We kind of have some agreements with like New London's Vicer, who's an hour and 20 minutes away. We're going to try to limit the amount of times that we play them, especially at the junior high level, just for busing reasons. And especially when we're still on good speaking terms with like Belle Plaine, LeSueur, Tri-City United, those kinds of things, it's much easier to pick up a game with them than it is anything else. So one of the cool things we got to take part in already with the Wright County Conference was they had a leadership conference. They invited 10 students from every school that were in 10th grade to go to Hutchinson. We were sat in the auditorium. We listened to Craig Hillier speak about different leadership styles, opportunities. He really challenged them and pushed them to kind of bring things back to their teams. So we split it up with 5 girls, 5 boys. I took nominees from coaches. So we kind of had representation from a good number of our sports that went through there. So the next thing, the Vanco ticketing apps. We are off to a good start with year 2. We've seen a lot more success with it. Every team in the Wright County Conference has an online ticketing platform. It might not be Vanco, it might be GoFan, it might be Hometown Ticketing, it might be something, but other schools are very used to them having to purchase online. So as long as we're getting those out ahead of time and posting them on the sites, it's been seamless so far this fall. Adding the card readers was a great help. We do get those couple people who at the door who are like, I didn't know if I was bringing all my kids or grandpa and grandma last minute came on, so they didn't want to buy 6 tickets online and only use 2 or vice versa. The one thing that I'm interested in trying to find a way around or a workaround is I'd like to see if there's a way that we could track our student attendance. With Vanco, we really can only track the amount of people who check in or check out. So when we look back through ticketing sales, you know, it's going to be lower than the actual attendance at those games, especially with board approval putting 7 through 12 students in for free. We've had a really great response with our student section so far this year. They're fun to listen to, they're fun to watch. They do make for a great environment, but I just, numbers wise, would love to see if there's a way that we could track them a little bit differently. I did put on there looking at a Wi-Fi option for outside at the ticket stadium would be an interesting idea. We've been running them out hotspots. They can come and go sometimes. So I know Steve and I are kind of looking at what it would be to put some outside Wi-Fi routers out there just to get those computers and iPads and things up and running up there. For those of you that aren't used to Huddle, Huddle's our live stream. We currently have 6 teams that live stream our activities. We are looking at possibly a way to invite like spring sports into that. Baseball, softball get a little tricky with those because they aren't necessarily hosted on campus. The other part to it is we often use city fields and there isn't internet run down to the sports complexes. So it gets a little bit tricky to bring cameras and things down there if we're trying to run off spots and those kinds of things. It's been nice that we now have our outside camera set up as well, so we can run our football games, we can run our soccer matches and those kinds of things out there. So we'll be able to get lots of opportunities for people to see our teams even if they can't get here. So the last one I put on there is just today I was at a Minnesota State High School League fall area meeting. So they kind of go geographical and give you an opportunity to talk to the directors and kind of get an inside scoop on what they're looking at. Probably the biggest thing going through the Minnesota State High School League right now is they're talking about adding all 9th grade sports as a governed Minnesota State High School League activity. Up until now, Minnesota State High School League has only covered 10 through 12 events. So if we had a ninth grade baseball game versus another team who is an only ninth grade baseball game, that isn't necessarily counted as a Minnesota State High School League sport. So it gets a little tricky with insurance and if you need sanctioned officials and how many games that actually counts as. Do they have to follow the number of innings rules, those kinds of things? Whereas cross country has always been encompassed because you could be a seventh grader, but you have to run varsity. So they're trying to kind of clean up some of the language with how it's all being presented. All in all, it's going to be a good thing. Their initial kind of drawback was the cost of catastrophic insurance for all ninth graders. They've done a bigger data dive and kind of realized that it's not as big as they had once assumed. And the State High School League has a nice little surplus right now. So they're looking at ways that they can benefit that. Member schools are going to get one vote on adding ninth grade into the Minnesota State High School League. There's going to be 2 questions on the ballot. It's from October 4th to October 13th. So the first question is yes or no, should we add ninth grade into the Minnesota State High School League? And then second would be, if it's a yes, updating all of their language to reflect that ninth grade is included in those. So another piece for you, this is a reclassification year. So for those of you who don't know, every 2 years, the Minnesota State High School League looks at what class you participate in and what playoff section you have to go and play. We are pretty unique in the fact that for some sports, we go to section 2. For other sports, we go to section 4. For another sport, we go to section 5. And then for yet another sport, we go to section 6. So we kind of get placed all over. And honestly, they look at size of schools and geographic location. So we're always the furthest north, the furthest south, the furthest east, or the furthest west, depending on which group we get put in. Section 2 tends to be south-southwest. It's like Mankato-ish area. Section 5 tends to be a little bit further out west. It's a lot of Wright County teams. Section 6 gets into the cities. So it really just kind of depends. So the Minnesota State High School League should have our new section alignments in April for us. And then they go and look at football. Football is its own entity. When you're looking at trying to schedule 9-man, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A football, putting schools geographically and enrollment wise in 7 different classes takes a long time. So they're telling us we should know our new football schedule by June 3rd. The last time around, it was like May 30th. So it gets a little tricky. I know people always ask, when is homecoming? When are we want to start planning for the fall? We want to start looking at all of those types of things. And just honestly, like the timeline says May at the earliest, but by June 3rd, they would start to look at that. So enrollments, Minnesota State High School looks at your enrollment, our numbers that we report to MPE. So they'll start to pull that data here in October. It's your 9th through 12th grade count. And then they let you take away 40% of your free and reduced lunch people. So there is a way that we continue to push those because they can help us out with that enrollment number. There is an option to either opt up if we would like to play a class above where we get put. And there also is an appeals process if you are within a certain number of that class determination, excuse me, to be able to go down. So those all take a while to go through before they release the official numbers. So really the only sport where that kind of comes into play is football. Last year we were 25 kids below the 2A football mark. And I want to say the time before that, we were 20 kids above. So we were able to go through the appeals process and then move this back down. So that's one I'll kind of be keeping my eyes and ears open. Questions for me? Otherwise, that's a super fast.
On the ninth grade deal, so when that, are they just gonna bump up the fee and it's gonna cost a little more money by adding, pay for the insurance, the rest, all this?
Not necessarily. So actually, they do take fees per school, per sport, and then they also add in per player in those sports. With that surplus that they have this year, we used to pay around $170 per activity. This year, we're only gonna be charged about $50 an activity. And so that catastrophic insurance as well, because a lot of those kids were already in their accounts, they just didn't realize it. They were kind of talking about 15 to 20,000 extra dollars on a budget of 1.8 million, somewhere in there. So Eric Martin's the director of Minnesota State High School, was kind of saying like they're going to be able to find some ways to shuffle that money around on their ends to not come back to us and say you need to pay way more money.
I get it, there's a surplus, but 2 years ago, all of a sudden it's, now we need that $170 instead of $50, and
Yeah.
where's that gonna come from? So
Yeah. So those are some questions where we start looking at, you know, our activity fees and how it goes from there. So, I mean, part of it is one way or another, a lot of times our school has insurance on those athletes. It just becomes, is the state high school league going to provide an extra layer for us, or is it gonna fall back completely on us?
I just have one thing on that Banco events, is that, are we in agreement, like, long-term with those guys, and what's our contract look like?
That I am honestly unaware of. I don't believe we have a year-to-year contract with them.
No, it is a year.
It is a year-to-year contract with them.
I wanna switch, you know, it'd be great to be able to track the Golden Age and the students, but what other programs, you know, like the other one that you said, would one of them be a better fit, maybe to look at for next year, and when we have to have that decided by?
So I'll answer that. The answer is yes, and, I mean, we have our Wright County Conference admin meeting next Thursday, something like that, 2 Thursdays, I don't know what it is. In the next couple of weeks. And the last time when we were in, Delano last spring, they were talking about, what's the name of the one? Bound, like mandating something in the conference bylaws where everyone's using the same, because like what Joe just said, we've got a little smattering of everything. I think the ADs like Bound. And I think the ADs like Bound. I don't think all finance people like Bound. You know, there's pluses and minuses. And there's gonna be a little negotiations I think going on. So, but I would recommend pausing until we get a firmer grasp of what our conference is gonna do. Because what I don't wanna do is have 3 different systems in 3 years.
How do 7th through 12th grades kind of get into activities now that do they show their IDs or?
Yeah, so we've asked to show IDs. A lot of our ticket takers know who they are, or a lot of times they'll ask them to just pull up their phone and log into their Infinite Campus portal to prove that they're a Central student.
So I know there's a way for Banco to actually have that pass on your phone, just like a season pass. And you just show them, you just go show them they scan it. Is there any way we can do that with students? Obviously, we're not charging.
Yeah, so
And
that
it
was
sits-
an idea.
And it sits in their wallet, basically, and it's on their phone.
Yeah, so that's an idea I've talked with Amy and Kari Crown a little bit about and we haven't dove too deep into it yet to figure out if we need to have a unique QR code for each of our students where we would just have to bulk upload all 7 through 12. Or if we could have one QR code that they all get and it just scans as an extra ticket every time they go through. So there are some different programs that have some different options. And just using the Bound system, like one of the things that they talked about is they have a complimentary ticket button that has students come through. You can just click, which could be used for the Golden Age passes as well. So we can track how many of those are coming through the door on each time as well.
That'd be really nice for the future when we're talking about pricing to see what.
Mhm.
Because, and I had shared with Joe, like a question that we asked when we were talking about fees last year is how many students did it? And so Joe's trying to find a way to, just also on the passes, our Life Touch does develop a student pass for us. So when we get photographs and pictures, school pictures, there is an ID that every student will get in there. Get it as well. Like, so,
Now, back to the, when I was during college, when we got our student IDs, it's kind of had a barcode to swipe for stuff. I don't know if that's an option too, if Life Touch has that, if you get a swipe, like a credit card swipe to get into the cafeteria or something like that, but.
The issue is that we're talking with 4 different companies that don't necessarily talk to each other.
Got it. So, yeah, no, it would be nice to eventually track it, how you do it.
Agreed.
So it's on the radar at least to see if we can get a little more accurate out there.
Did the MSHSL change their formula on the free and reduced lunch numbers?
No, they have not looked at changing that number.
It's always been 40%.
It's always been 40%. And actually they're saying that those numbers are becoming a little more accurate with all the free lunch programs through. They're seeing a lot more of an accurate reflection of how many do qualify for that as schools are pushing to get those numbers up in systems. So.
I was just gonna ask that question. I didn't know if you're getting as many people to put in for that benefit because there is free and reduced lunch and so many programs are based off of that number, like Title I and stuff. So I didn't know if that looks a lot different now that they are implementing free and reduced. Are you seeing as many families?
We are seeing more direct, what they call direct certification numbers, which is not necessarily someone filling out the reduced lunch form, more through like a counselor worker is where we're seeing that. Our numbers are still hovering around 10%.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, operational items. E1, consideration of the fiscal year 25 levy certification.
This does require action tonight, and this is probably going to be the best news of the night. Guarantee it. All right, Mr. Larson's pull this up. So, yeah, exactly.
That's a build up.
This is going to be the best news of the night. So just a reminder, this is an overview of the proposed preliminary property taxes payable for fiscal year 25. And I'm going to review significant changes. Moving on to the key messages here. Preliminary certification is a component of the overall levy process. Adjustments to the levy can be made at a later time. My recommendation to you always in September is to certify at the maximum because we actually certify the levy in December at the Truth and Taxation meeting, which this year is on December 16th. If you do not certify the maximum tonight, you cannot undo that. So it's recommended to certify the maximum and make adjustments on the backside if you need to. So what are factors that implement any taxes and change at this level? So one of them could be issues driven by state level decisions. So maybe a formula changed at, through the legislative process. Maybe there is a change in the sales ratio impacting the anticipated net tax capacity, which basically is the overall property wealth of our entire school district. Maybe there's laws that mandated code compliance, which would change the tax rate of some properties. Things that have been directly impacting our taxes in the past few years are the next three: approved bond referendums, approved levies, approved capital projects levy. We've had all three of those since 2019. And then local factors, which which we sometimes hear about at the school board level or at the city level, but really we don't have any impact on these last four. So for example, and we saw this in the last couple tax season, where property values are increasing at an exorbitant rate, where it's an unrealized gain, and then the county reshuffles the deck of what portion of the overall property tax you're paying based on a potentially inflated property value. Some of our properties, request abatement, which is property tax relief. Like there's a whole abatement process that they go to a hearing at the county and say, you know, come and look at my basement. I didn't finish my basement. Said I did. And on the back side of that, you know, maybe there's, you know, possibly property improvements that somebody finished their basement and the, you know, the tax man came and said, we're gonna start taxing you on that now. And some changes in classification could impact your tax rate. For example, we're aware of a homestead exemption. If you turn property into a rental, you're paying at a 2% tax rate rather than a tax exemption. So moving on to the levy process here, just a reminder, you are certifying this levy to be paid in 2025 for the 2026 school year. I know. This is, that's just how the process works. So you see this every single month. Here's Central's budget process. Right now, we are in September, initial preliminary tax levy calculated by MDE. And you know, like Kyle said, our audit is getting done. In December, we'll have a truth in taxation meeting, and then we make the budget adjustments in January, February, and then we're required by law to have a preliminary budget in June. We get to do the whole over again. So where's the good news? It's right here. So I'm showing you 3 years of revenue for the district. And so it's broken down into 3 categories: our general fund, our community service fund, and our debt service. So the actual is an decrease amount. So our levy is actually decreasing in our community service and general fund by to the tune of about $44,000. Our debt service, which is our voter approved piece, is increasing, but there's an overall net increase of $99,000, mostly in the debt service, and that's an overall tax increase of 1.64%, which I'm guessing our property owners are going to love. Now, this doesn't mean that we're getting less money per se. What is happening is a shift in the formula. We are getting more revenue in the form of state aid, so I want to say our overall increase in revenue year over year is $300,000 in the general area, but that's coming in aid, but just given to us from NDE rather than us having tax. So this honestly is the best case scenario for us right now, this year. I'm actually so again, my recommendation after any discussion we have is to certify the maximum. This is the maximum. Then Director Smith has to sign this form. I send it into MDE, and then we talk about it again in December. Happy to answer any questions.
Let's be very happy to answer now.
No, it's really, it's just honestly, it's probably the best one since I've been here, which is good.
Any questions from board members? Hearing none, I'll make a motion. Second. I'll move to approve the maximum proposed 2025 property tax levy as proposed. Second by Erickson. Motion by Eichen, second by Erickson. Any other conversations? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's approved. E2.
E2, second reading of policies. This,
Yeah, do you want the policy committee? Do you want to just talk about it or?
go for it. You were there.
Yeah, okay, so, these are all Minnesota School Board recommended and required, policies that our policy committee, which is Shelby, Sarah, and Josh, have already reviewed. The only one that is a little bit different is with the acceptable use cell phone policy. That was developed at the local level by Mr. Larson and his ILT. And just to cover that, because a reminder that in the last legislative session, school districts are required to have a cell phone policy. And really, you can do whatever it is you want to at the local level. They just are required to have one. So we are putting in place the policy that we had last year, which is P through 5, there are no cell phones allowed. Those cell phones are stored in the backpack. There's really no reason to have those out. In 6th through 12th grade, during classroom time, you probably heard about it if you have kids at school. We have a little cell phone jail. What's it called, Mr. Larson? Cell phone locker?
Something like
The
that.
cell
Something
phone
like that.
tree.
It's a what?
The cell phone tree is
The
what I
cell
was
phone
told.
tree. Okay, well, it's, so so the kids, it's just part of the procedure. They put them in and they can take them out during passing time, lunchtime, things like that. Students are welcome and encouraged to snap their friends and have fun with that, but we are prioritizing, thank you. We are prioritizing, learning time during the classroom, which is what our mission is. That is the only one that's a little.
Yeah, the rest are all like statute changes and.
For all statute changes, yes.
Since I'm part of the policy committee, I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of the policies as present, do you need to list every single
No,
policy here?
just-
The policies as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ishman, second by Trails. Any other conversations? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Policies are approved. Oops, sorry. I lost me. Next board meeting will be October. Off the top of our heads here.
I'm sorry. This is the second time in a row that I haven't done this. I didn't. It is-
October 28th
Sorry.
at 6 o'clock here in the boardroom. Will we adjourn? Is there anything else from board members? 28th, right? Yeah. Right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Smith, anyone want to second that?
Second.
Second by Probach. You haven't had one yet.
No, I
There you
haven't.
go.
I
Okay,
got quiet.
all right.
I think it's an important one.
Yes, you did. Last time, last call, one. All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you.